What fires you up? A favorite song? A new gadget? At Doing What Works, it's lively conversation. That's our canvas. We love radio because it leaves so much to the imagination. And if you give us the next hour, we'll tickle your imagination. Now, here are your hosts for Doing What Works, Maureen and Katie Anderson.
Picture this. You're an artist, a musician, a writer. You are devoted to that work, even if the world knows you by a different job title, maybe a 9-to-5 job that pays the bills or whatever. How do you stay motivated when you don't know if you're ever going to make it? And I should put make it in quotes because who knows exactly what that means. How do you stay motivated when you don't know if you're going to make it, if you're doing the right thing with your life, if you're filled with all the angst that I have decided is just part of the deal? It's part of the deal when you're trying to put something brand new out into the world. Well, we try to put something brand new out in the world once a week in the form of this radio show. But I want to say right off the bat that you might hear raindrops hitting the roof of the RV once again. Longtime listeners of the show, who happen to be our favorite people, know that we are living in a used RV in a campground in the mountains of northeastern Pennsylvania. And unless it's a bright sunny day, you are bound to hear a lot of commotion in the background, for which we apologize. But we will make it worth it to you today.
Again, I think it's ambiance.
Ambiance. Katie likes to call this the meditative version of the show. You have the raindrops to...
Exactly. Yeah. If you're not driving, close your eyes, go to your happy place, and listen to the sultry sound of our voices.
Yes. Well, I asked in the beginning, how do you stay motivated? One way I have stayed motivated for many years is by following the work of Steven Pressfield. His website is stevenpressfield.com. I have referred to his book, The War of Art, more times than I've referred to What Color's Your Parachute by Dick Bowles, which is saying a lot. But The War of Art is a book that I read, and then when I finish, I start reading again. It's my Bible. It's how I stay inspired to do what I think I'm meant to do here. And if you want a classy place to hang out online, and yes, there is such a thing, and stay motivated, go to stevenpressfield.com. Especially on Wednesdays. He does this thing called Writing Wednesdays, where he takes you backstage to his work and shows you how he stays motivated and what he grapples with. And the people who comment on those posts, of which I have been one for many years, have formed this community that I think is so wonderful because we keep each other inspired. We play off of each other. And recently I noticed this woman commenting whose name is Kate Stanton. And what I noticed the most was right away everybody's like, oh, I went to your YouTube channel. I checked out your music. Oh, I subscribed. You're amazing. And she is our guest today on the show. Kate, this is probably the longest introduction I've ever done, but we are so happy you're with us.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome. I feel like we grew up together. Just the few things I noticed right away that you said, I thought, oh, this is a kindred spirit. And the first thing I want you to, I should let you talk a little, and I will, I promise. But the first thing I want you to do is to catch everyone else up on your life so far. Do you want to do that first?
Sure. Absolutely. Well, my name is Kate. I'm from Ohio, and I do work a 9-to-5 job, and I also on the side write songs, which have been, it's been my dream since I was a little girl. And I think that just in the last few years, I've really taken off with that. As my daughter gets older, I just feel this like drive to think, I want her to do what she wants to do and what she feels she was meant to do. And therefore, I feel like I should live by example. So that's been a big motivator for me.
Okay, can I butt in? You knew this would happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that so much because you know what a lot of people do? You do know what a lot of people do. They don't do it themselves, and they try to steer their kid into living the life they wish they would have had.
Yeah.
And I've always thought that was so unfair to the child.
Yes. Yeah, and my daughter has her own path that she's going to take. She's really into, like, she likes art, she likes to draw, and she just started playing the saxophone, and she has other interests that, you know, she didn't get from me or her dad or anything. So, but the whole, finding importance in doing what you want to do aside from, you know, making a living and everything, that has just been like so important to me the last few years to be more true to myself, you know, and what my intentions are. And I just, and as we connected on Pressfield's blog, it's just about, you know, just following your dreams. I mean, I've had them since I was a little girl, but I just didn't have the guts to do it, I guess.
Well, I want to come back to that as far as what gave you the guts, but how old is your daughter?
She's 12.
12. Oh my gosh. And do you mind telling us what your day job is? If you don't want to, that's fine, babe.
No, yeah. I work with two really, really amazing colleagues. I love them, and we run a small business for foreign language interpreters and translations of documents. So we contract out about 100 to 200 different people from all over the world, really, that speak other languages. So it's really interesting on that side to meet people in my small town from all over the world. I do love meeting different people. So.
And are you the person I heard this from, that music is the universal language?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely believe that. Yeah. Because even if we don't know how to write music or read music, every single culture and every single person has that song that speaks to them. I think everybody has, you know, music that speaks to them, and that's what I mean by that. So,
well, Darrell, our producer, Katie's dad, and my husband is with us as always. Yeah. And I noticed that when we started working together, I got to watch him at close range, and he would have this big dream, and then he would just set out and do it. And it was a great thing to witness. And then also he got to know me, of course, really well. And he would know the things that I love doing and see that I was maybe really good at them. And then when an opportunity presented itself right in front of us, he would say, you should do that. Like the first book I ever wrote, we'd become friends with this guy, and the guy wanted to write a book, but he didn't have the writing skills. And he left our house after still another interview for the radio, and Darrell said to me, you should be the one to do that. And I thought, nah.
That's great.
But yeah. as our relationship unfolded, Darrell became the person who took my dreams off the list and suggested I start picking them off. And I just think we all need someone like that in real life.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, and you grew up in an environment where following your dreams was kind of an airhead thing to do.
It made you a little bit of a goofball.
Yeah, that was how you were raised.
Yeah. Why do you think they call it work? Anybody who enjoys their work is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same, or even like irresponsible to follow your dreams, your head's in the clouds, when really I do believe the other things will follow if you listen to your heart. I'm starting to really believe that.
So as far as getting your nerve, did you grow up? I mean, you grew up knowing that music was it for you, but the turning point was what?
You know, I was so shy growing up, and I still go through bouts of like social anxiety and things, but I was so shy that I guess I just didn't believe anyone would want to hear what I had to sing. So I hardly shared that with anyone. And it wasn't until I met this more outgoing friend in my, say I was 19 or 20, and she was in her 40s at the time, writing all these songs and going to all these coffee houses and sharing her songs. And I just really looked up to her. I was like, wow, she doesn't care what they think. She's sharing her heart. She's sharing her music. And we were friends for about 10 to 12 years before we ever started writing music together. And we wrote some songs together, and it's just been about the last 2 years that I felt even, strong enough to write music completely on my own and share it, because I've been writing for a very long time, but sharing it for some reason has been the tougher part for me. And I think with sharing your art, you just reach a point where it's harder to keep it in than it is to share it. You just have to do it. And if they reject it, they reject it. But if they like it, that's great too,
And here's one thing I wonder. If I don't get so much joy from, for example, just how much Katie loves something I come up with, that I tell myself, man, if this is as far as I get, I can die happy. But I think I might jinx it by saying that, because it's really okay to have more than just Katie like it.
Yeah. And, I have this thing I shared with on the blog too, that I would love to help girls at the age that I struggled with confidence so much. I would love if my music helped girls at that age realize, the same thing that I told you about my friend, where, well, she could do it. Why am I not doing it? I would love that.
It's very interesting to talk with someone who is so intent on leading or showing a child that you can be happy and you can have a wonderful life by doing that yourself. I didn't realize that aspect of you in getting to know you on Stephen Pressfield's blog. So I will look forward to talking with you more about that and weaving more of your music through the show. But we're coming up on a break. And when we come back, I'm going to turn the program over to Katie Anderson, my co-host, and Katie and Kate are going to have a great time, and I can't wait to listen to it myself. That's straight ahead on Doing What Works.
Thanks for listening to Doing What Works and to our radio affiliate partners like WMKT in Petoskey, Michigan.
Back with Doing What Works, I'm Katie Anderson, joined in real life by my mother and co-host Maureen Anderson. Our producer Darrell is also here, but we also have a very special guest with us today. Her name is Kate Stanton. She is a musician, but she is a musician with a day job, which is what I was really excited to ask her about when I learned about her from Maureen, because when I was growing up, I grew up in a household where Maureen especially was always preaching the idea that you need to follow your dreams and find your passion, and whatever that passion is, that's what you should be getting paid for. And I thought that was really beautiful, but I also had a really hard time figuring that out because it wasn't just one thing. And for the longest time, I thought that there was something wrong with me, that I had this job that I really loved, but wasn't the end-all be-all thing in my entire life. And it took me a few years after college before I realized that that was a perfectly acceptable rhythm to have in your life. And Kate, I really wanted to talk to you about the relationship between your day job and your music and how you balance those.
Yeah, and I can totally relate to everything you just talked about, because I feel the same way. And I do have a day job, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And not only are my colleagues very supportive of my music, I also get inspired by some of the people I've met that I work with, mostly interpreters or translators that are from around the world, essentially. And it's really nice because I know I've shared this quote with Maureen. We both like this quote from Gustav Flaubert about being regular and orderly in your life so that you can be violent and original in your work. I need to have, money to pay the bills, and I need to have that structure. So in my free time and fun time, the things I like to do, I can work on music. And, I think it's very important to continue doing what you love, even if you are busy during the day at another job.
Yeah, and it seems like your day job isn't something that necessarily drains you a whole lot. It's something that you like to do, a place you like to be.
It is. I like my coworkers, and I like the people that I talk to every day. They're very interesting. They have interesting backgrounds. And there's one girl in particular, I say girl, but she's a woman, but she's a polyglot. She speaks, I think, 6 or 7 languages. And anytime I have a question about a foreign language, I usually just call or text her. I'm like, what is this weird dialect from the Congo or something? And she knows everything like that. And they're just really interesting to talk to from a smaller Midwestern town in Ohio, like where I'm from. It's really neat to meet people from all over.
How do you carve out time to make music when, you said you're a mother, you obviously probably have a lot of other things going on?
Yeah, it's very important to find the time, even if it's in little increments, like 15 minutes. My lunch break, sometimes I'll put my earbuds in and take a walk around the neighborhood, around the office, and come up with ideas, and I'll jot down ideas, or I'll speak into my phone. I'll email myself ideas. And then when I actually have the physical time in my music room, I already have all the daydreaming done, so I can just pump out the work. So it really is just, I'm kind of old school. I make checklists, whether that's on my phone or on a piece of paper. That way, when I do have the time, I know what needs to be done. And like I had emailed, I always feel better after I leave the music room. So I have to make time to do it, almost like exercise. You never really want to do it. You may be drained from the day, but you usually feel more energetic after you do it. It's the same thing, I think, with creative work.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you sit down sometimes and just feel completely unmotivated? And do you push through anyway? Do you go do something else? What's your strategy there?
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons I also like Stephen Pressfield's work, because he talks about you have to do the work, even when you don't feel like it. You have to discipline yourself to sit at the piano or sit at your typewriter or whatever it is that you do. For you as an artist, to sit down at the paper, even if you don't have maybe all the ideas right then, still do the work, still draw, still play, still sing. And hopefully one day something new will come along, because I think there are different seasons when you create. There's a season of collecting stuff and getting inspired, and then there's a season of really putting your head down and working, and then there's a season where you may feel more extroverted, where you want to promote things, and then there's a season where you get a little burnout and you just want to relax and wait for inspiration to come again.
I am very well acquainted with all of those different phases in my life. And it's good to understand that there are different things and not beat yourself up too much about being in any one position when you'd rather be in the other. We are talking with Kate Stanton today. We are so excited, and we will be right back with more of Doing What Works.
Welcome back to Doing What Works. If you're trying to put anything new in the world, you have come to the right hour of radio. We have the privilege of talking with Kate Stanton today. She is a musician. Kate, I should let you say a little something about your music. What kind of music is it? Who are you gearing it for? And so on.
Yeah, sure. I create an experimental indie pop with a focus on atmosphere. And my favorite thing is melody. I love to sing. I love creating catchy melodies. And one of my other favorite things to do is collaborate with artists. I feel like I can learn a lot more about myself and others that way. And to me, it's more fascinating seeing what we can come up with as a team than just on my own. But my own music has been such personal growth, not even just with music, but just in my personal life. So it's just been a journey. It's fun for me. It's what I like to do in my free time, and it's a great way to connect with others.
And your main distribution is through YouTube at the moment? Is that right?
At the moment, YouTube, and I've been posting a little here and there on Spotify, but mostly YouTube because I love creating visuals along with the songs.
Oh, and how do we find you on YouTube?
If you just type in Kate Stanton, you'll find my channel. I have songs like the latest one, major one that I released with a professional drummer from the UK is called Dare to Dream. That's probably one of my personal favorite ones that I've written. But I'm collaborating with, like, there's a girl from India I just finished a song with. She created the music and asked me to sing on it. And when I found out she was only 14, I told her, I was like, you have great leadership skills. I said, keep doing this anytime you want to collaborate. Because she's like, yeah, I'm 14. And I was like, hey, anytime you want to collaborate, just hit me up and we can work on stuff. Yeah, she's from India. And I'm also collaborating right now with a composer from London. And she plays the piano so beautifully. I'm always in awe when I talk to her because she talks in these metaphors. Well, this is really interesting. One time I was talking to her in a Zoom meeting about piano, and she's like, Kate, if you play in this scale, it's like you have your blonde hair and light makeup. But she's like, if we play in this scale, it's you've darkened your hair and you've put dark makeup on. And I was just like, I love these analogies, Nadia. Like, nothing explains music better than these just quirky analogies she comes up with. But I'm learning so much from her. And I do believe when you collaborate as an artist of any medium, you learn a lot about yourself and about others.
Well, I also want to mention that the YouTube information will be in the show notes. So if you're driving, you don't have to make sure you write down the name. We'll take care of you in the show notes. So just go to MaureenAnderson.com, subscribe to the podcast, and you'll be all set. I want to go back to something you were talking with Katie about as far as finding time to write. I think I was one of those people as a young woman who thought, oh, wouldn't it be great if I had a situation where I had this, I don't want to say a cabin in the woods. Mine would be like a loft in a penthouse in a big city like New York City to write, but I could just go there and do nothing but write. And what I have learned since from hearing so many people's stories is that that's paralyzing, that they have a situation where they have the luxury of, for example, being on a sabbatical for 6 months or a year, and they have this idyllic setting, and suddenly everything dries up. And it reminded me that when I was little, my favorite place to do homework was at the kitchen table with 7 brothers and sisters swirling around, particularly if I had to write an essay, because that's what put enough stew type things in my brain that I could cook something up with it, if that makes sense. And you and I were bonding about this a while ago, that the messier life gets, the more there is to say.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's a good form of stress relief and just a way to process things that are going on around us. So I think it would be hard to isolate oneself and not maybe have, you know, the busyness or the people in our lives that inspire us to write. I think I'm more prone to want to do it when I feel like that resistance that Pressfield talks about. I'm more prone to write songs because it's like I almost want to prove, hey, okay, life's busy right now, I can't do it. Well, yes, I can. Tell me I can't do it, you know?
I think I'm more likely to come up with something good if I'm sad, because I'm determined to get something productive out of the sadness.
Yes, that's a great point. I totally agree.
Well, and I think we also tend to think that the only way we're going to be able to create something really good is by sitting down for a long time. And I used to think that about myself too, but the most success I've ever had in doing work was when I had a comic that I knew was going to be like 40 or 50 pages. And I realized that if I just made myself write half a page a day, it would take less than an hour, but it adds up so fast. But you don't get huge multi-hour blocks of time very often. And honestly, usually when I do, I end up wasting a lot of it because it's way too much pressure.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, there's a thing in songwriting, which I'm sure is the same with any artistic work, is that the more you do, I mean, they say even that it could be fertilizer. Even the crap that you think you've done, even the stuff that you think should be in the garbage can, like, it's fertilizer for the stuff as you continue to grow as an artist. So never look back at something you've done and think, oh goodness, I can do so much better now. That was worthless or whatnot, because it's all baby steps towards that project that you feel in your heart, that you feel is in there to create.
I'm going to bounce one thing off you quickly before we go into the next break. But just the other day, I was talking with Katie about a writing project. It was something brand new I was thinking of doing. And I emailed her right away, and we both decided, yeah, worth doing. And that night I went to bed thinking, okay, let's see how I feel in the morning. And then in the morning, I knew it was the lamest thing I'd ever considered. But I'm old enough now to think, oh, really? Think back. And it's like every chapter of every book I've ever written, I'd write the chapter, I'd go to bed thinking, well, that's stupid. I'd wake up and I'd read it and I'd go, that's not so bad. And chances are it would make it into the book intact. I mean, word for word. Is it like that with your music?
Yeah, and it's so ironic you brought that up, because I was just talking about something similar with a jazz professor that's been helping me with theory, and he said anytime that you are being creative, you're problem solving. So it's very common for us to be hypercritical on our work and look back and think, oh, I don't like that, because we've solved that problem and we're on to the next problem, and it builds and builds and builds. And he's someone that I really admire his work with composing, like for film. So when he said that, it really helps me to not look back at stuff I've done and cringe, but more so look back and think, okay, I solved that problem, and now I can work on the next one now that I know the answer to that problem.
Help for being a creative person when you don't know what you're doing. And none of us do. We'll have more of that straight ahead on Doing What Works.
Offering a fresh perspective on age-old challenges. That's Doing What Works. Thanks for listening to Doing What Works and to our radio affiliate partners, like KRFE in Lubbock, Texas.
Back with Doing What Works, I'm Katie Anderson, joined by Maureen Anderson and our producer, Darrell, and we are talking to the wonderful Kate Stanton today. She is a musician. She is one of my mom's internet friends. Is that a good way of describing her?
I hope I can call you my internet friend, Kate. Can I?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They met on the comment section of a blog. That's where my mom finds most of her friends these days.
Oh, thank you.
But she didn't argue.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're talking to Kate about creativity and music, and I am curious about what happens when you sit down and you have no idea what to, like, you sit down and everything is just a blank.
You know, when that happens, I try to focus more on something else that I need work on until I get that inspiration again, because that happens a lot. I'd say that happens even weekly, where I'm so excited knowing later on tonight I'll have a night free and I'll sit at the piano and I feel a little bummed because nothing's happening. So I'll practice scales, or I'll write, or I'll work on some other aspect of it. But when it does happen, it's almost like a little natural high of some sort. It just feels really good. And I try to make the time when that happens to then not practice anything else. So I try to follow that over being real strict in my schedule.
So you have what you set out to do, but then you also have this really effective fallback.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's so much other things that I like to work on that kind of feed off each other.
How have you surprised yourself lately?
That I can still have the energy to come down here after a really busy day, whether it's with family and work. And it's almost to the point my colleague jokes with me. She's like, I saw you posted something on YouTube over the weekend. She's like, how did you have time? I said, I didn't have time. I did it I've talked to Maureen about this. When I'm more stressed, I write more. So it's like, I wish I almost didn't sometimes, but I feel like it's such a good stress reliever.
And it's really beautiful to have that. I don't believe that anyone's coping mechanisms as a rule are better or worse than anyone else's. Some of them, I guess. But it is also really nice to, when you are really upset, happen to have a coping mechanism that is not only the best for you, but also results in something wonderful at the end.
Yeah, I think we talked earlier about making something that may be sad into something that you can then process and make it into something more beautiful than just those yucky feelings you may have, just kind of process and change it.
Yeah, one of my favorite things to write comics about are my adventures in the dating scene in New York City. And every once in a while, something really devastating will happen. And the first thing that I do is figure out how I can spin it to make it funny and then send it to all of my loved ones. Because not only does it feel really good, but it reframes it in my mind as something that, if that horrible thing hadn't happened, I wouldn't have gotten this wonderful thing out of it that I can now bond over with people I love.
Yes, and that's the perfect word, reframe. I like that.
Thank you.
It's a way of processing things. You're a songwriter, Kate, so you know this, but you're taking the mess out of your head and putting it on paper, which does two things. It gives you distance from it, which then helps you see it more clearly. And it's no longer you. It's this thing that's happening in your story, but you can pull away from it long enough to decide you're going to write a different chapter.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a great way to connect with others as well. Like sometimes we have feelings that can be very isolating, and if you're able to write about it and someone connects with your poem or song or whatever it may be, then you really feel like just that connection, something good happened out of it.
Yeah, and you don't feel like your suffering was just only for suffering. It's like suffering, but for a purpose.
Yeah, there's meaning to it.
One thing that Stephen Pressfield's blog does for creatives, Kate, is it helps them trust in spiritual science. And I'm going to take over for Katie and go to break here and hope that you won't mind addressing that when we come back with Doing What Works.
We are glad you're joining us today for Doing What Works. I want to invite you to drop by Maureen's website after the program, or anytime really, for the latest on what we're up to. You can find out what's coming up in future shows, listen to podcasts of recent programs, and read Maureen's blog. It's all at maureenanderson.com.
Ever wish you had your own personal life coach who didn't charge you a penny? Now you do with Doing What Works.
If you go on YouTube, which I know you do, do a search. I don't.
You on Twitter.
Twitter. And I'm just going to say a word about Twitter, all right? You left for college and you didn't worry about me because I had the show, granted, which was a gift for you that I had the show, something to absorb myself in. But if I didn't have Twitter and I only had Darrell, God bless your heart.
Oh, here we go again.
No, please keep going.
Let's kick the dog.
There's a saying that Twitter's for people who don't live in New York. I need a lot of inputs. My brain needs a lot of stimulation, and no one can fulfill that on his own. So there was no diss against you, Darrell, but
You're only human.
Anyway, yeah, YouTube. If you go to YouTube, back to my point, search on Kate Stanton, you will hear some of the most beautiful music ever. You can't tell from her speaking voice, but her singing voice is hauntingly beautiful. I think that's what someone said in the comments of StephenPressfield.com.
Her speaking voice is beautiful, too.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, it is beautiful. Didn't I say that?
Basically.
Thank you.
Yes. Anyway, what I wanted to close out the show with was, Kate, since you and I met in the comments section of Writing Wednesdays on StephenPressfield.com, Stephen helps creatives like you and me believe in something that I think without people like him, we might feel a little silly believing in. He talks about the muse. He talks about forces beyond us that are at play. He talks about creative works having their own energy field. He also talked about recently that the purpose of art is self-actualization. You are trying to develop your soul to the greatest extent possible with your time on this planet. Do you remember him saying that, Kate?
Yes, I do.
All right. And without someone like him saying it, it might have felt too foo-foo to me even now. And I feel like I'm long past the age where I care if it's foo-foo, if it works, whatever. But it still helps to have someone like him say, no, pay attention.
Yep. Yes, I love, especially Do the Work and The War of Art in particular. It talks about how life is fleeting and we should set out to do the work we feel in our heart that we're meant to do. And, when you were talking, Maureen, I even thought of I'm going to paraphrase it, but even Nikola Tesla said something about you want to find what the universe is all about. Look at vibrations, look at energy. And I mean, art is creating maybe negative energy into something positive, or taking that energy from whatever's in your head and putting it down to paper, putting it on the piano. I do think Pressfield's onto something with the muse, whatever it is that a person may believe, whether it's another, universe or whatnot. I do believe that it's almost like, where did this idea come from,
And one thing I face all the time is, and anybody who's not a household name yet, for some of us, maybe most of us, we will never be, quote, rich or famous. And then what? Well, the then what is, that was never the point. The point, as Stephen puts it, is how he feels at the end of the day when he has created something new, when he has taken a blank page and written a story on it.
Yes, absolutely. And that's that self-actualization, that we can't control the outcome of our work or what other people think, or whether we get the earthly recognition we're looking for, money, success, or whatever that may be. It's growing as a person and who you were meant to be. And that's why the Do the Work, I think even the cover of that book has work boots on it or something, because it's just about, growing as a person. There's gathering all your knowledge, getting that support team, and doing your work.
We have the right to our labor, but not the fruit. We don't have a right to the fruits of our labor. And whether you get the so-called rewards or not, if you don't do it, the world won't have it, because there's never going to be another you. And I hope that Kate and Katie and I have inspired you to bring forth whatever is burning within your soul, because we need it. We need you. And that will do it for this edition of Doing What Works.
This broadcast is copyrighted by North Shore Productions. Learn more at MaureenAnderson.com. Music by Kevin MacLeod, and you can click on the radio tab for more about him. I'm Cindy Weir. Thanks for listening, and we hope you'll tune in again next week for another thought-provoking hour of inspiration on Doing What Works.